Hey everybody, Brian Hogman here with Mission35 FIRE. And you know what? I'm super pumped to have a very dear friend of mine, James Meers, on the show today. He's just an all-around stud. He's a real estate investor. He had a big-time job, which he left. He's got a great family, great dad, great husband. Really just so many great things I could say about this guy. But, and you know what? With our Mission35 FIRE, I was so excited to have James on here because he is doing some amazing things with real estate investment. And our goal with this FIRE podcast is to help elevate, educate people's financial awareness as to really what is possible. So James, thanks so much for being on today. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show. This is exciting.
You got it. So tell everybody a little bit about you and your beautiful little girl named Alice and your lovely wife, Jess, as well, too. Tell us a little bit about
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. Well, we've got Jessica, my wife, and Alice, my daughter, who is going to be turning 2 in September. We're a very happy little family here, and our dog Dixon, living in Hamilton, and things are going well. Aside COVID aside, we're a pretty happy family. Yeah.
COVID schmovid, right? COVID schmovid, right? Whatever. It's moving along. Not to be insensitive, I'm just kidding, but I think a lot of us are excited to be on the other side of that, right? So now you came from Toronto and you actually made a big move because you were a big Toronto guy and you moved to the Hammer and you actually had a pretty cool job coming into the Hammer as well too. Can you tell everybody about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So, as you mentioned, originally from Toronto and, investing in Hamilton, I saw, such a great opportunity, and a great quality of life out here, which really, it was magnetic for us to sort of drew us in. And there was this opportunity at the Chamber of Commerce, the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce. So I was working there for about 3 years as a chief operating officer. And that's really what drew myself and my wife to Hamilton originally. So we've been here for about 3 years now.
Wow, right on. So you you got your amazing job at, and that's when we actually got to meet too, which was pretty cool. And now you recently left that job as well too. How long has it been since you left that job?
Yeah, so it was the beginning of January 2020. So I'm losing track of time here, but I think we're in May. It's sometime in May here. So a few months ago. It's pretty fresh, pretty new. Obviously, the COVID-19 hit fairly soon after that. So everything is a bit of a blur. So I've shifted to become a full-time real estate investor. It's something that I've been planning on doing for a number of years now, and the time just felt right. 2020. Brian, you and I are the same age. I don't know if you want to disclose that on the podcast here, but
you know what? I haven't been able to get my Botox lately, so it's okay.
Yeah. But, turning 40, I mean, for me that, the new decade, 2020, it felt right. So made the big plunge to do the full-time real estate investing.
Yeah. I think that's powerful. And I think too, because a lot of people, I think, want to do exactly what you're doing and be a full-time real estate investor, leave their job. But like you said before, it was very systematic. It's not like it was just you woke up one day and said, I'm going to be a full-time real estate investor. Like, how long have you owned investment properties for before actually deciding to make the full commitment to it? Because it's not like you just started buying investment property a week ago or a month ago and said, I'm an investor, right?
Yeah. I thought that's how these things worked, right? Is get rich quick scheme or... No? Okay. You got a different message there. Okay. No, but I mean, it is, yeah. I mean, it's not time in the market, it's time in the market. And I think I've been very lucky to have benefited from that. And obviously, reaping the rewards now, being a full-time investor and having the financial freedom to do exactly that. But my first investment property was in about 8 years ago. And I really sort of stumbled into that. A friend of mine was a real estate a realtor at the time, and she just, had some money sitting my RSPs. It wasn't doing much for me at that time. And she essentially talked me into buying property. And in that same conversation, we went through the MLS listings, and this was in Toronto at the time. And I saw one property. I recall it very, very clearly. And she said, I'm going to give them a call tomorrow. And we're just going to begin the process, have some conversations. It's part of the learning process. And within 24 hours, we were immediately in negotiations to purchase this property. So things moved fairly quickly. And I became a landlord, really just stumbling into it on the advice of a friend. And since then, it's just been an incredible journey. Obviously, the last 8 years, 10 years in Southern Ontario, GTA in particular, have been phenomenal in terms of the growth and the acceleration of the price appreciation for properties. So for me, it's really been a great opportunity. That was really my foundation block. I still have that property today. It's cash flowing. I've refinanced it a few times, in fact, and so it's given babies to more properties. And that's the beautiful thing about, I think, real estate investing, is that it's a beautiful way to recycle money, leverage the power of other people's money, banks in this case, and just accelerate wealth at a tremendous pace that I have never seen in any other asset class. So
I like that. I totally agree with that. I love how you said it gave birth, it gave babies, it gave little house babies and refinance babies and money babies. Like, it just creates more and more there. I'm curious, what is your portfolio up to now? So you started with one rental property, and that was 8-9 years ago. And how many units do you have right now, approximately? Or you should know exactly, I would imagine, if you're really...
Yeah, approximately. Let me think about that. I got COVID brain right now. Like, everything's blurry. Since our daughter arrived. Everything's blurry, and then COVID hit. No, but in all seriousness, I've got 22 units now. And actually, since, I don't know if I even mentioned this to you, Brad, but I've recently put in an offer that was accepted for a 6-unit property. I may have mentioned this to you, but that sort of bumped me up to 22. Awesome. That'll be closing next month.
That's amazing. That's good. And you know what? Yeah. Like, when you think about it, in 8 years, you know what? And I think for people to set up expectations for themselves that, you know what? The first one, I think, is the launching point, right? The first one gets your feet wet, start to accelerate that money. But you don't need to jump from 1 to 22. It's taken 8 years to grow up to that many units and become a full-time real estate investor, right? So now that you're retired, let's say, and doing this full-time, how has your portfolio accelerated since?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, since my first property, is that kind of the question?
No, since you left your job at the city, right?
Okay.
And now that you're actually retired, during that, or not retired, but I say, like, you know, choosing to follow the real estate investment passion there. What has been the change in your portfolio from then until now in that short period of time?
Yeah, well, the change has been the 6-unit property that I mentioned. So, I mean, you know, when you go from what I had, which was 16 units up to 22 now, obviously that is a pretty good scale up. And that's for my own portfolio. Where I've really been focusing my energies and leading up to leaving my previous job was working with a coach very intensely, and his name is Quentin D'Souza, by the way. Amazing coach. He works out of Durham, the Durham region, and, you know, has been absolutely instrumental, I think, in helping me build that next level of confidence, the business systems that you really need to turn this into a real sort of turnkey business rather than a side hustle, let's call it. And really sort of understand the fundamentals and some of the foundational pieces that, you know, sometimes are not necessarily there, as you're always, if you've got a full-time job, you're never really thinking of it, I think, as much of a business as you would be as a full-time investor. And so I think with the help of my coach, my job, that has helped me build, I think, really strong fundamentals. It's helped me to begin the business growth that I have had in mind, and looking at joint venture partnerships in particular, which is where I'm moving strategically with the business, is working with other partners to help them, increase their wealth generation, but also be on the same team and see the same benefits for myself. So that's where I've spent a lot of my time over the last few months, and I've already seen a lot of great benefits from that. And on, my own business system side, just, systematizing the property management side of my business and operating my portfolio in a much more efficient way. Huge leaps there. And again, it's just really having the bandwidth, the time, to focus on the business versus, you got a job, you got to focus on your job. When you have no more distractions, you're 110% focused on the needs of your business. So that's kind of where things have shifted in a dramatic way, and I'm seeing a lot of benefits and positive leaps forward as a result.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think you hammered on a lot of good points there by having a coach, and I think having, like, real estate investment is, I agree, it's a part-time sort of hustle if you only have 1 or 2 properties. However, building up systems and practices, now you're able to scale, because I would imagine if we do this call 6 months from now or a year from now, I would imagine your portfolio will probably be double or triple the size it is now, because you're actually putting in systems and processes for that. So good for you, James. I want to ask too, for people are typically really fearful of making that leap. What was kind of your tipping point, or what was your deciding factor? Because you are a very, I would call you a detail-oriented guy. You're a methodical thinker. You don't act brashly. You act with reason, right? So tell me, how did you overcome that fear to leave your job? Because you made, it's a 6-figure income job, and you left that. Like, some people would say you're crazy. So what rationale or what metrics did you have to have in your mind in order to be like, okay, I'm comfortable to leave that and take care of my family and keep going?
Yeah, great question. And I mean, I should probably, give you a lot of credit here, Brian, because, one of the first people I met in Hamilton was yourself. But I mean, what you're pushing with Mission 35, and I think, you have this spreadsheet, right, with the magic number, and, when, from your point of view, it's all down to the numbers at the end of the day, right? What are your expenses and what is your income, and when do those two meet to get you what you need to survive, but also to live a good life? And so I plugged those in, and I was very much inspired by your story, actually, and the journey you had. And so I gave myself a number. I said, by this age, I need to achieve this much income exclusively from my real estate property portfolio, and sort of looking at my household expenses, looking at how my properties were doing over the years. And over, I would say, those 3 years since really beginning this job, I've really honed in on it. That's almost, for me, like the Bible. That's where it all begins, where I look at that spreadsheet, and it sounds very simple and basic, and quite frankly it is, but I had goals that were set, and I looked at them every single time, in cell A45 right beside, whether it's a net worth or it's like, the magic number to leave the job. But so those are kind of the driving systems that I had in place, I would say, that I would continue to look and analyze. That sounds very boring, and I'm sure many people listening to this are going to be sleeping at this point. But the piece to your question of what was my fear was really being, quite frankly, trading time for money, and being the person who's 65, 70 with a pension and retiring, and thinking, I've got to work so many more years to finally live life on my terms. And, and you've lived abroad, I've lived abroad, we've traveled. We know there's so much to see in such little time. And time is the most precious asset we all have. We can't replace that. So I wasn't willing to compromise the life I have on this planet, and that of my family, on somebody else's timelines, and how soon I could get there. So this was all built on the fear of, I don't want to be stuck in the rat race indefinitely. And we look at the markets now. People's pensions are getting wiped out. So there is no security. People are getting laid off, upper management in particular. There's no security out there. And so you know, for me, it just felt like I want to be the master of my own domain. I want to be the driver. I want to set my own destiny, and I have certain goals that I want to achieve. And so the fear factor was I can't be living this life caged up. I need to be unhinged. There's things I want to do in life, passion projects, and I think we all have them, places I want to see with my family, time I want to spend with friends and family, and especially when you get the baby, once you have child number one, time becomes the ultimate precious asset. So for me, that was my fear factor. That was, I'm never going to have enough time to do these things. I'm never going to have enough time to spend with my family, with my children. And I know growing up, like my own father was, you know, was very busy. My mom was busy working, you know, both parents working full-time jobs. It's always hard to find that time for family. And then when you do, and, you know, people start to retire and wind down, it's kind of a little too late. Right. So, I just didn't want to be another statistic. I really just didn't want to live that life. And so I made that conscious decision. That's not for me. And I need to find a way to get there quickly. And obviously real estate is that way to get there quickly. That's the means to the end.
That's awesome. Yeah, like, I love, me and you are very similar in the sense that, and I'm a big believer that you'll do more to avoid pain than to seek pleasure. I know we've talked about this before. And my motivations, similar to yours, are more so to avoid pain. And a lot of people think, I want to be financially free or real estate invest for all this good stuff. But I love how you put it in a painful perspective of, as, you know, seeing yourself older in life being regretful. Right. And that moves people so much more. And I really commend you for that. I think that's powerful. So I read
your book.
Oh.
I prepared for this, right?
Shameless plugs. I love it. Thank
shameless
you.
Plugs. Yeah. All throughout. Yeah. You should have the link show up right now. On
shine it right here.
Yeah. Click here. Amazon. Great book, by the way.
Awesome. But I want to tell everybody now, because, you know, there's probably 1,000 different ways to invest in real estate, and no one is right, wrong. There's lots of different ways to make wealth with real estate. You're doing, like you did, you were kind of like the solo guy when you started. Like, I think a lot of people, you buy one property, you rent it out, you manage it, you refinance it, you buy another one, and you're kind of the one guy doing everything. Then as you start to grow and scale, you get into JVs, which, you know, joint venture partnerships, where you may have, say, operating partners and money partners. Can you tell people a little bit about how that, because your company, Park Street Properties, right? And tell how you're doing that now, because I think it's a great opportunity that people sometimes don't think of when they're just stuck as like kind of that John Wayne, I can only do what I can do mentality. So if you can share that, that'd be really cool.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think you've kind of you've already explained it. So we're already done here. Let's move on to the next question. Thank you, Brian. That was a great response. Moving on, but yeah, no, just to maybe dig in a little further. You're absolutely right, and it's a team, right? I mean, it's got to be a win-win, right? So you know, you've got to have somebody who's got the capital that can, you know, help to go on mortgage and title and have some investment capital put in, and usually that's a money partner who is generally pretty busy with their day-to-day business or their employment and family and things like that. They just don't have a couple things. They don't have the time and they don't have the expertise. And that's where an active operating partner comes in. And that's where, having done this for a number of years with my own skin in the game, have built up, I think, you know, some experience that I can now offer to money partners who don't have that, but have the cash available and want to see that accelerate at a much greater pace than what they can get, say, in the stock market. Or some other asset class. And obviously we all know real estate moves at a much quicker pace and far more predictable as well. So it's a win-win there. On the active partner side, obviously there's a lot that comes to the table, and I don't know if you want to dig right into that, but, you know, just at a high level, really obviously finding the properties, that's huge. You go on MLS and, you know, you're probably not going to find a very good deal. You're going to be paying probably too much. It's very rare to find a good deal, and if you do, you're probably having a bidding war, in which case you may or may not get, and it'll still be probably bid up too expensive. So off-market deals are where you're immediately making cash on the property acquisition, getting it below market value, and that's where your active partner is already bringing value to the game. Of course, you know, you acquire the property, negotiate the price and the terms. The next piece that's critically important is managing the property and ensuring that the property itself has everything that you need in order to execute on the real estate strategy. And there's different strategies that exist. My particular strategy focuses on the buy, renovate, refinance, rent, repeat, the BRRRR strategy. And that's really to ensure that the investors are able to see their money come in, but also come out and then get recycled. And we see the velocity of their capital, so that it's not sitting in the property for an indefinite amount of time. And we can obviously go into that if you want to a little deeper. So you exit, you got to make sure the property has the right strategy in place. It's got the opportunity to really build up the value of the property, and then managing tenants. And, you know, tenants can make or break a property, obviously, and ensuring you've got a good system there. You know, there's bookkeeping, accounting, taxes, you know, repairs, general maintenance of the property, and then obviously exiting and ensuring that you can exit, whether you're selling the property after 5 years, you're doing a refinance and renewing that partnership beyond whatever term you have with your capital partner. Whatever that looks like, you are the managing partner in a way, ensuring that everybody makes money on the deal, that it's a good deal, and that you know, everyone can walk out with a smile on their face. So
yeah, and you've got a great scale on it right now, James, because I think you've got units that are up, you know, in a higher level than what a lot of people, you know, what a lot of people would aspire to. I think that scale can work at a low level and a high level, because I know one of my limiting factors when I was getting started is I thought it all had to be my money or the bank's money. But the reality is, I think, you know, tons of baby boomers and people in their 60s and 70s, like you're saying, are losing pension money. There's no reason why, you know, little mini James on the call right now, or little mini Brian in their early 20s can't get mom, dad, or grandpa to be a joint venture partner on their first property and be an active partner and a money partner. Like, it works on scales from single families to 100-unit buildings, right? So I think that's a really good nugget for people to dive into. So James, just to wrap up here, I'm going to ask you some nonsensical questions for fun.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, tell me what your favorite book is. What are you reading, or what's your favorite book?
Okay, I mean, this is going to sound very cliche, but, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki.
Cool.
I think that was just a game changer.
Awesome. What's your favorite movie? That is a great book, by the way. I love that book. What's your favorite movie?
Yeah. Favorite movie, The Godfather.
Love it. I love it. You kind of look like the Godfather with that background today. You look like
yeah, this is all staged, by the way, right? You know, it's a graphic animation. It doesn't actually exist.
It's a green screen. It's going to blow over.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then, okay, what's your favorite superhero? Who would you be if you're a superhero?
Superman.
Yes, I like it. Okay, and what's the first thing you want to do post-pandemic, after COVID-19? What do you want to do?
Oh, the list is long, but I mean, I'm a little stimulus seeking, and just being cooped up is just, you know, it's a little bit much. So I'd love to get to travel somewhere when that's allowed, like New York City, where it's just bustling, lots of energy, lots of activity. It sounds a little wild given the situation, but I'm assuming it'd be safe to be in those kind of crowds. So I'd love to travel somewhere just to an amazing city like New York.
Awesome, man. Awesome. James, thank you so much. I am proud to call you a dear friend of mine. It's been amazing getting to know you over the years, and as we grow our relationship. I love that I'm fortunate to have relationships in my life with people like you that I always get to learn from too. So thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing. If anybody wants to get in touch with James regarding joint ventures, things like that, we'll put all his contact info somewhere in this vicinity somewhere. Okay. So James, we'll talk to you soon, man. Thank you everybody for tuning in to the Mission 35 Fire, and see you guys next week.